Welcome everyone. My name is Sandra Riches and I'm the Executive Director for the BC AdventureSmart program. We're just going to wait about 1 more minute for everyone to queue in. We can see them rolling in through the attendance here, and it gives everyone that extra minute, no different than if we were in person and you were coming in to find your seat in the auditorium. Speaking of that, we often do face-to-face presentations, and we've done that for the last 17 years. We've been traveling around our province and delivering most of the curriculum through that interaction of an in-house setting. It's either a lunch and learn or tourism office or school visits and workplaces, and that's been the mainstay. You know, COVID changed that for us and many of us, so this is another way to meet and greet and share our information. So it's a fun way to do that. And tonight I'm excited to introduce our special guest. I'll do that in a second. Just to introduce you to GoToWebinar, if this isn't a familiar setting for you, it's a platform that we use. It helps us in so many ways. It presents well. Hopefully at your end you agree. We love it. It's very easy to organize, gives us lots of analytics and lots of pluses. You'll have a dashboard there. We've automatically, sorry for you, muted you and turned your cameras off. So that's not enabled tonight. You get to see us and we get to manage ours. Yours is disabled for now, but you can watch what we have to say and listen to us. We do have the chat feature though, and you can toss your questions, comments in the chat feature, and that will allow you to communicate with us. We're not going to leave you high and dry. We want to hear from you if we can, and we'll give you opportunity to ask questions to myself and our special guest, and also our tech support. So I'll introduce our team here. So you've got myself. I'm the Executive Director for the BC AdventureSmart program. And I've been involved with the program for 17 years since inception. We also have tech support, Natasha. She is our guru behind the scenes running the show. She'll answer any of your questions and will help us with all the technology tonight. She's got that mastered. She's also our assistant coordinator and does outreach for us as well. And then we have our special guests, which I'll introduce shortly. I think we're good to go there. I've just kind of casually welcomed you, and hopefully you're set and ready to roll. I'm grateful to be joining you tonight from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, and I am also grateful for the opportunity to share our messages and how we can bring forward special guests to share their insights, perspectives, and allow us to expand our knowledge. You know, our main focus here with the program is to increase awareness for you and all outdoor enthusiasts, all levels, to help reduce the number and severity of search and rescue calls. That's our main goal. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do. We do that in many facets. We do that through many streams and different tactics. A few of them I already mentioned. What we've decided to do over the last year and a half, and will continue, is bring on special guests to our table, welcome them into our home, if you will. This has turned into our home, hasn't it? And have them share what they know, their knowledge of the outdoors, in their realm, in their circle, in their expertise, area of expertise. And that just adds value for me, for our team here at BC AdventureSmart, and for you as our enthusiastic outdoor adventurers. I'm sure you love to hike and bike and kayak and climb and boat and tent and camp. The list is lengthy, and we have such easy access to that wonderful terrain here in BC. We're really fortunate. And Sandy, who's joining us tonight, is here to share with us her perspective and her knowledge, which is vast, and we're really grateful to have her joining us. Sandy Ward is a member of the Lil'wat Nation and an avid snowboarder, mountain biker, and climber. We were just talking about all these activities that we love to do before we came on here tonight. She's been snowboarding for over 20 years and has been a competitive half-pipe rider, snowboard instructor, and backcountry enthusiast. During the winter season, when not teaching snowboarding, you can find Sandy in the backcountry on her traditional territory. She's had the incredible opportunity to travel and snowboard around the world, including working as a tail guide in Japan, a winter season in France, and a few seasons instructing in the Southern Hemisphere. Lucky her. Sandy got her start in snowboarding as a member of the First Nations Snowboard Team, and in its first year of operation, that's when she joined them. Since getting her instructor certification, she's volunteered her time as a coach for the First Nations Snowboarding Team for the recreational program. So without further ado, I'll be sharing some of our safety messaging after Sandy's finished with her presentation. I have some great information about being safe outdoors, what you can do to help reduce the number and severity of those calls. And I'll give you those nuts and bolts and the finer details of that, and offer some more resources after Sandy's done. But tonight we're here to listen to Sandy and what she has to share. And I would love to pass over the stage to her and welcome her to your home, to your screen. There you go. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
Nice. Well, we're so glad to have you, and it's really fun to have others come and join us. You know, Natasha and I and my team, we go to trailheads and ski hills and visit people virtually and face to face, and we have all that fun stuff. But we always love it when other people can come to us and share with us what they know, and it always opens my eyes. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say and share, and I know it will enlighten me and our listeners. So I'm going to turn my camera off, and it's all yours.
Inchash Makach Bakam Shamak Squatchich Sandy Ward, Lil'wat Nation, Lukumuch Makan. My name is Makach Bakam, means snowflower, and I am from Lil'wat, and I'm, yeah, as already said, a snowboarder, mountain biker, climber, everything like that. I spend a lot of time working with Indigenous Women Outdoors and Indigenous Life Sport Academy to try and get our people out on the land experiencing it in a different way, like I do. I love to get out and connect to the land and in this special way of recreation. But yeah, we're talking about getting out on the land. Truth and reconciliation have been some very commonly used words lately, but have you ever asked yourself, how can you get outside in a respectful way while embracing Indigenous culture? Tonight we're going to discuss a little bit about this. I'm in no way saying that I speak for all Indigenous people or even for my entire nation. This is just things that have kind of come up for me in the past 15 or so, 20 years that I've been part of the outdoor community. But I'm gonna share my screen here, if I remember how. I've got a little bit of a slideshow. So here we are. So yeah, what does it look like to get outside and embrace Indigenous culture? So recreating responsibly on Indigenous lands. So this basically, it all starts from home, right? So doing your research, whose land are you on? This has become pretty common, land acknowledgements and understanding what communities you're in. If you're not aware, a great resource is that link there, nativeland.ca. This will tell you whose territory you're on. If you want to get more in depth, you can learn some stories. I love to do this. I know so many stories from my lands, as well as like I recreate a lot in Squamish as well, so I've learned a little bit of theirs, and it just makes me feel that much more connected to the lands, and it just makes my experience so much better and more interesting. A lot of nations have their own websites with information on their communities, their history and their culture. And this can provide a solid understanding of the nation's current vision and priorities. So yeah, there's a couple of resources there. There's a couple of maps you can look at that actually have traditional place names and their pronunciations. So this is pretty amazing. When I go out or when I'm like posting on Instagram, I'll use those traditional place names instead of the English names, just because I think they're really beautiful and they really describe the lands that you're on so much better. Yeah, take notes. I will be hiking and I'll be like, oh, that place, I remember there's something about it, and I'll look in my phone at my notes and I've written like the whole story, and so I can actually share that with the people that I'm out with, and it just makes the experience so much nicer. So yeah, and some of our stories, they do talk about safety out on the land. We've got one in particular here in Lil'wat. It's called the Mountain Rescue, and it talks about avalanches actually, and how the winds like coming over the mountain, you can see it, and then like not to travel on that kind of leeward slope, because that's where the slides will happen. So some of those stories are pretty knowledgeable about safety, so it's pretty cool. And then once you're confident and know some of the traditional place names and some stories, and you want to go out and travel, once you get into your community, be friendly. Indigenous people are super friendly, and chances are they're probably waving at you from the side of the road. Give a little wave back, and yeah, go the speed limit, of course. This is a really big one in Mount Currie, actually. A lot of people will fly through our community, and it just doesn't sit well with anybody there. So yeah. And if there's like a gas station or a store, maybe stop and get your snacks there. A lot of people don't know this, but the money generated from these on reserve stores and gas stations usually goes back into the community for like public works projects or health and healing. And yeah, it's really good for the community, or like even recreational programs. Same with the cultural center. A lot of places are starting to have cultural centers where you can, you know, go and get your gifts, like locally made gifts, and there's a wealth of knowledge in there as well. So if you know, want to go and pick up like a map with traditional place names before you even get to your trailhead, you can sometimes find those in there as well. So it's pretty awesome. And then of course, once you're at the trail, so this is really, really important. And this is, I've noticed, this is where you will be judged, right, by the local community. So you want to make sure that you're acting in a respectful way within that parking lot. I know it's just a parking lot, but yeah, park off the highway. We all know up the Duffy, it can be shenanigans up there on weekends. So like, for example, when I come up there, I know it's been like, you know, you're driving a long ways to get there, and oh, there's no parking. I've gone past, dug out my own spot way off of the side of the highway, so I'm not obstructing traffic or anything. These highways, these back roads even, they connect our communities. So sometimes, you know, people are just trying to get from one location on the territory to the next to visit their family. So you don't want to be like causing harm to anybody like that, right? So park off the highway, and be conscious of local traffic. I've been up on our territory and had people walking right in the middle of the highway coming straight at me as I'm trying to drive through, because there's cars lined on both sides of the highway, but they don't even try to get off. You know, just be conscious of this kind of stuff. And same with back roads. Like, even though it seems like a super remote location, there's could be a community back there. You don't know. Well, maybe you do if you've done your research. But yeah, just be conscious of that, and try not to linger if it's really busy. I don't like to stay in the parking lot personally. I like to get out on my adventure. When I'm coming back, yeah, you want your celebratory kind of get together or debrief of the day. If it's really busy, maybe try doing that somewhere else, like go down the road a little bit to like a lake or whatever. I've done that before too, where when it gets really busy, I'll just pack all my stuff up in the car, leave, and then we'll kind of have our little debrief down somewhere closer to town or in the pub or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of people watching you in that parking lot, and the way that you are presenting your entire community is basically what's happening there. So you want to set a good image. And then once you're on the trail itself, so we do have a lot of archaeological sites out there, a lot of cultural history. A big one that comes to mind for me is always Cream Puff. It's a bike trail in Pemberton. And the way they actually found it was when they were making the bike trail, they uncovered a petroglyph. And so they immediately like kind of stopped and like rethought the trail. It did actually go over a really nice rock roll apparently. And so they had to build a fence around it. But people still go around that fence because they don't know what's there. There's not always going to be signage on every one of these archaeological sites. So best to do your research, see what the fence is for before you try to go around it. So that's been a really big issue with that trail for our nation. And yeah, I always say take a minute while you're at the top of your hike or your bike ride and look out over the landscape and enjoy the views, but also think about the people that came before you. Our people, they took care of this land for a century, for like forever, right? So it's a beautiful place, and I love to just, you know, take all of that in while I'm out there, and it's awesome. Unsanctioned trails are another big one. We have a lot of people on our lands going and building hiking trails or biking trails, putting in rock climbing routes that are, yeah, they might go through someone's berry patch or someone's mushroom patch that their family has been harvesting there for centuries. You don't know. There could be an archaeological site or like a site of cultural significance that you're just tearing up. You have no idea. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Stay on the trails that are already there. They're built, usually, like a lot of the time, they're actually built on old Indigenous trails too. Like the Duffy Lake Highway, Duffy Lake Road Highway is actually our trail that connected our nations. So yeah. And then while you're out there, those notes that you took, share them with the other people that are out there. Share your new knowledge of your place names or your stories. It just brings a light to everybody's day. So it's a really awesome thing to do. And I love to, when you see me out on the trail, I'll probably be talking about some story that I just read about or some place name that I just learned. It's a really awesome way to connect stronger, to make a stronger connection to the land. But yeah, there's so much information out there for you to read through or to research. So I've pulled out a few things that I found really helpful. So the Outdoor Recreation Council of BC, they have this article called Working in a Good Way. And if you are into trail building, this is such an amazing article that they've put together. It describes how to go about trail building and connecting with the local Indigenous communities. And like I learned so much myself from just reading this. So yeah, definitely have a read through that if you're interested in trail building or just building a connection with an Indigenous community from your organization or whatever. Cycle Magazine also put out a great article about decolonizing bike trails. What does that even mean? It's really awesome. You should read it. And yeah, of course, the organizations that I work with, Indigenous Women Outdoors and Indigenous Life Sport Academy, are great learning resources for, you know, seeing what we're doing to try to get our people out on the lands themselves. So it's pretty sweet. Have a look into us. Follow us on Instagram. If you are recreating on Indigenous lands, it's always a good idea to donate to these organizations that are helping our own people get out on the land and experience our territories like they've never seen before. So like with Indigenous Women Outdoors, we have a hiking program right now. So the ladies are going out for hikes together and they're learning from each other, not just how to be safe in the outdoors, but also learning about our cultures and our histories. And it's an amazing space to share this knowledge with each other. And like we had it in the Backcountry program this year, and it was just so beautiful to see these bonds being formed. And yeah, so, but yeah, that's kind of all that I really had. But thank you for listening. And yeah, I'm more than happy to try and answer some of your questions if you have any questions. But how do I stop? There it is. Stop sharing my screen. I don't know. There
Thanks,
it is.
Sandy.
But yeah.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. I've made notes. I've made scribbles. I've got a whole bunch here. Some I thought, okay, good, I knew that, but the rest, no, I didn't. And so it was really insightful for me. So I can only imagine how it may have been just as insightful for our followers that are here tonight. And it's really a great opportunity for us just to share with each other as well. So it's a wonderful way to get our message out and to share your insights, Sandy. I really appreciate it. I hope that our audience tonight have some questions. I'll just run through my presentation here. And then everybody can jump on through the chat feature just as a reminder and ask us some questions after that. So thanks, Sandy. You'll be back. I won't be long. And if you don't mind switching off your camera, and then we'll run through this and then we can open it right up. Yeah, that was some insightful information. And it's great to see how that will tie into now what we talk about all the time, which is outdoor preparation preparedness wherever you go, and taking in what Sandy has now advised us on with so much respect and consideration and empathy. So this what we talk about now is the literal preparation, and we call this our Survive Outside program. We have a number of programs underneath our umbrella, 5 to be exact, and we rotate them every week, seasonal, and we run through snow ones and winter ones in the winter and summer ones in the summer. You know, we're a national program. As I mentioned earlier on, we started here in British Columbia 17 years ago. With the reason for the startup was because we have more search and rescue calls here in British Columbia than anywhere else in the country. And unfortunately, that's still the case. I say unfortunately, but there's so much more in the equation. There's many more people recreating, the access, the promotion of outdoor recreation. The equation's unique now versus 17 years ago. There is a slight shift, and I'll talk about that in a second. Our main message, whatever we share with you, or you follow us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or visit our website, the main foundation are our 3 T's. We want you to trip plan, train, and take those essentials with you. Trip planning is key, and I'd like you to think about it divided in a few different forms. We want you to make a plan and leave a trip plan with a trusted emergency contact. Planning your travel route and navigation, knowing the terrain and the conditions, understanding the weather, and leaving this with a comprehensive trip plan with a trusted emergency contact. This is done every single time. If you're foraging, if you're mountain biking, if you're climbing, if you're backcountry traveling, this happens no matter what. If you're going for a short or long dog walk, search and rescue volunteers have rescued dog walkers who've been stranded in an emergency for days. So don't dismiss your activity thinking, oh, I don't need to do this much information that Sandra's talking about. I'm just going to go for a walk on my local trails. Municipal, you can still tell someone where you're going, but you know, you're hitting the Baden-Powell in North Vancouver, if you're hitting some trails where Sandy's living, and anywhere throughout this corridor, this piece is a key piece. We've broken it down for you, and we've got just an example. All Trails is one example. There's many apps out there that can help you find information about the specific trail that you're looking for. This is one of the most important steps of not getting lost. We know here, the bottom bullet here describes lost and disoriented is the second most common reasons for search and rescue. First one's injury, and the third one is exceeding abilities. So if you can think about the 3 main reasons for search and rescue, lost, injury, exceeding abilities, and focus on how you can mitigate the risks in relation to that, you'll be ahead of the game. So think about the difficulty of the trail compared to your experience or level and the time of daylight that you have, understanding your limits, making sure you're checking into your activity and back within that sunset time, and taking all of that into account every single time. We do a little comparison here. Burnaby Lake Trail is 10 kilometers, 2.5 hours. There's the trail surface. It looks doable for most. And then on the right-hand top picture, it gives you that distance again, an elevation gain. And it's about 26 meters in elevation gain, so not too bad. If you come down to Sigurd Peak, this is only 4 kilometers longer. The terrain looks a heck of a lot different in that middle bottom picture. You can see that trail surface, more of a route here, but technical skills required, no question about it. This takes almost 8 hours to do this one. And there on the bottom right-hand picture, it shows you that topographical map. And if you understand what those contour lines mean, some of us can look at that map and it almost looks 3D to us. The closer the lines, the steeper, the farther apart they are, the more gentle the terrain. The whole point around this comparison is to understand the terrain and the conditions that you're heading into, and knowing your skills and ability that need to mirror how this will be executed safely. The weather's a big one. You know, we're in a bit of a warm summer here. The fires are happening. There's lots to consider where we're recreating, how will we mitigate those risks and plan for an exit if we need to. This weather is a big one if we gain elevation. And I think anywhere just about where you go in definitely the Sea to Sky corridor, same for Sandy and myself, we gain elevation quickly, and it just happens because that's the terrain that we live in. Checking those temperatures and understanding how the variance affects your your hike, let's say, or mountain bike, the likelihood of precipitation right now is pretty much close to nil, if not completely nothing. So it affects us in a different way. Wind speed, sunset times. And as we gain elevation, we all understand it gets colder, and yet mainly spring, early summer, early fall throughout the winter, really keep in mind that that general rule of gaining that elevation, you're going to lose about 10 degrees on a clear, perfect day. For every 1,000 meters that you gain, it's going to get 10 degrees colder. And that's an important piece to remember as we have easy access to incredible terrain in Sandy's territory, throughout where I like to mountain bike and hike as well. And as we gain that elevation, we have to really consider that, and that affects what we pack, what we wear, and what we have in case of an emergency. And the comparison back to those two trails is the reason why we talk about that elevation gain. So this one, you gain almost 2,000 meters. That temperature is about to change almost probably by 20 degrees if the conditions are picture perfect. That's a big change. That's a big change. Footwear, clothing, emergency rations, wind protection, sunscreen, the list goes on. We'll talk about essentials shortly. Don't forget about that elevation gain and take that into consideration as you make your plan. Leaving that comprehensive, expand it, detail. Your trip plan needs to be as much detail as you can. It can be pen and paper, not a problem. It can be a detailed text to a friend. It can be a really detailed version on our trip plan app, which is accessible to everyone. It's free to everyone. And that prompts you through the steps of the 5 W's and the H here. And we'll go through this in an example of a text to a friend and what should be done there. But the app, it allows you to fill in the fields. We've taken some of it, we've made it really easy for you. Let's just put it that way. You can fill in the fields with as much information as possible on our app. You'll have access to that via QR code if you don't already have it when we get to the end of our presentation here. So, you know, we're telling mom in this case, I'm heading for a hike into the mountains tomorrow. We're leaving at 7 a.m. We're going to do the Garibaldi Lake Trail. We should be back in reception about 4 p.m. So we have a time and a location. And again, the more detail, the better. The app is an awesome way to do it. A very detailed note is perfect. Depending on where some of us work, we've had to leave extensive trip plans in another form. I used to be a BC Park Ranger years ago. And Natasha used to be a snowboard instructor, and we've all had to leave safety itinerary behind, maybe on a work form, but this will work too. We're going to Rebel Creek Trailhead up the Garibaldi Lake Campground, returning on the same trail, wearing my favorite red top, and I have my green jacket with me. I'll also have packed all my essentials. So that actually means something to my emergency contact. To some, that might not mean anything. To my emergency contact, it means something. On the app, it allows you to tick them off. We've listed the basics, and then we've given you a section to add the season and sport specific. I'm going with John and Amy. Here's John's number, and here's Amy's number. So there's backup contact. So there's my number. If there's cell reception, then there's 2 more. So we have backup. If you don't hear from me by 5 p.m., call me first, check in with me, right? If I don't answer, try John, Amy. And if you don't hear any of us by 6 p.m., then the number to phone is 911. There is not a search and rescue phone number. There's no one else you need to be phoning. And it's a really important piece to remember here is that we're not calling our family at this point. We're not calling a friend out of province. And it's important to make that phone call to 911 as soon as possible so that can get put into place. It takes a while for the tasking agency, which is police, to start that up, task out the local search and rescue volunteers, and then have them muster, initiate, and start to assess to see what they can do and make it safe for them before they even start. So there's some timelines there. Don't phone your friends. Don't phone me if you know me and say, Sandra knows that trail. We rode it last week. Don't give me a call. Don't phone Sandy. 911 is the number to use. In the chat feature, Natasha hopefully is going to pop in. We've got a YouTube video. It just kind of explains what happens with the app. It's simple. It's about 1 minute long. That'll be in the chat feature for you to have a peek at. As we jump into training, this is a piece that I love, and it talks about, we've broken it down very basically, but there's always more, and this is always continuous. From me learning how to use an axe from my dad when I was a little girl and had to chop the wood and stock the wood pile, that was my job. To me taking an awesome mountain bike course a couple years ago, learning a few tricks and drops and rolls, awesome, loved it. This one, we've kind of divided it into your skills and ability that will help you. And this would be season and sport specific. So activity specific. My mountain bike course was a good example. Physical fitness, maintaining that. You know, we have easy access to incredible terrain, and it gives people a false sense of security, thinking that's because it's so easy to get to, they don't need to train or be physically fit to do these trails. If you live anywhere throughout the Sea to Sky corridor in the Southwest, you pretty much do, because you either go here or here. Physical fitness is key. And having that mental strength as well, that will come into play in an emergency, or those times when you need to push a little bit further or make that decision that, no, I've had enough, I need to turn around and try this another day. Navigation and route finding definitely ties back to one of our causations of search and rescue. Wilderness first aid, being prepared for those emergencies and having that first aid there. Knowing how to use the rations of the forest to help you in that situation if you can, if you've been trained. And then rescue and emergency training, that can be expansive. In the wintertime, that could be an avalanche skills training course. Summer could be any of your skills. This is a very basic 101 of that. It's enlightening you on some of the processes. Taking those essentials with you is a big one, and we talk about our trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. And there's our basics that are our foundation. They're always in my pack for mountain biking this season. I transfer them over, the basics, to my pack if I go snowmobiling with my boyfriend in Whistler or Pemberton, or if we go hiking, I change it up. And then that season and sport specific gear comes in. So my avalanche transceiver shovel probe for the winter, bike tools, different pads, different gear for my mountain biking. And that's where we jump into that season and sport specific gear. And this should go with you every time. It should be habit to put that pack on and go. What we're trying to create is this safety culture so that these actions are habitual. We're either reminding you to do them, or it's trying to instill that great habit in you and creating that behavioral change in a nutshell. Here's our list, which you can find also at adventuresmart.ca. And we wanted to show you there's a red sack there on the floor with a few things in it. The items are all checked off on your left. The headlamp, extra batteries, of course, fire starting kit, signaling device, first aid kit, sun protection, and emergency shelter. Because we get asked a lot, especially at trailheads, that this seems onerous or a lot to pack, a lot to carry, a lot to gather, a lot to get ready. Is it heavy? It's not, and it's easy to put together. And I bet you a lot of this you have around the house already. You can borrow from friends, reuse at centers, Value Village. There's places to get your kit ready. And in this next picture, those top few items are neatly packed in that little red sack. And then the extra food and water, you're bringing it. Keyword there's extra. This is your emergency rations, your extra layering of clothing and navigation and communication. That's it. I shouldn't say that's it. That's it for your basics. That's your foundation. That's what I consider the base of my pack, which just stays there. And I refresh what I need to. But I know that that's always there. And I ensure that that's ready to roll, no matter the season or activity. So when we jump into season specific, we had an incredible winter this past winter. I don't know if any of you spent time on the snow. You still almost can in some spots. Microspikes would be a great addition. Walking poles would be another. Ice axe, possibly still. Helmet. These extra bits are definitely those season and sport specific pieces. These are just some examples of the extra pieces for a multi-day. Of course, in the left-hand corner, that stays the same. That doesn't change. But then we've got a tent, sleeping bag, mat, water purification, extra clothes, gas and stove, some gel packs there, extra pieces. Don't forget about your personal additions. If it's medication, if it's your favorite chocolate, if it's your favorite handkerchief. I've been carrying around the same handkerchief since I was a park ranger, actually. I wash it regularly, but it's been in every pack I've ever owned. It's funny to me. No one else really knows it's that old. And then climbing, of course, the basics stay, and then your extra pieces are added to that. The point of these few slides is to note that basic foundation stays the same. Backcountry skiing, of course, we transition into a bit of a winter example. Of course, all your gear, avalanche transceiver, shovel probe, knowing how to use it, taking that course. So it's essential you understand what your gear is capable of and what you're capable of with your gear. Now some fun pieces here. What to do in an emergency. I would love to pull up a poll question. Natasha, if you don't mind, I'd love to see if the audience could play here. And any of the questions will work, Natasha, that you pull up. We talked about them earlier. And what you can do here in the audience is you can let us know what you think in relation to this question. And then once Natasha's got it up here, oh, there we go. When you need help, who should you call first? So we've got some options here. Your friend who knows the trail or area, your parents, wife, brother, family, because they're worried, and they will be worried, no question. The local police or RCMP, search and rescue volunteers. So when you need help, if you're lost, in trouble, or hurt, someone's twisted their ankle, who should you call first? I think I talked about this earlier. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I did, but this one's always interesting. And you know, as we wait for you to fill in the results before we look at the tally, and Natasha can swap it over once it's ready, there's been a few unfortunate incidents where people phoned the wrong person first versus the right. Oh my goodness, you're the first ones to all answer 100%. Okay, great. You pass on that one. That's great. Thanks, Natasha. That's great. Let's get back to where we were at. There we go. Thank you. It should always be 911. There's no question. There's no delay. There's no waiting. There's no waiting an hour. There's no waiting 2 hours thinking, oh, I think they said missing persons or injury is whatever. Phone right away. We can't get you to make that call quick enough, in the sense that SAR would want you to make it fast so that they can be tasked out, and they would rather be on their way, getting ready to go, and being stood down or called off and have to go back home than you delay that. That delay affects daylight, possible safety for them. Their safety will come first before they come and hit the trail or start to look for you. So there's a lot to happen there. So as soon as you get a chance, that number's 911. Thank you. Now, what to do in an emergency. This is a piece that is an important one. We can talk about our 3 T's. We can talk about trip planning, training, and taking the essentials. What if something goes wrong? And in British Columbia, we have over 1,900 search and rescue calls every year in BC. 1,900 search and rescue calls every year in BC. We have upwards of 3,000 search and rescue volunteers that respond, and there's 79 search and rescue groups. So if you know what to do in an emergency, you're helping them. You will help them directly. So if you're lost, in trouble, or hurt, you need to stop. If you haven't figured that one out by now, stop, then think, then observe, and then plan. So in that stopping piece, you're checking if anybody's hurt. Is there emergency care required? Are you lost or just a little disoriented and you can see the trail marker and get back on track? The key piece here is to stop moving. Don't go down a gully, a drainage, a natural draw, a creek bed. Stay right there. Now you get to think, how will you contact search and rescue? Well, hopefully you've left all that information on the app and that's been transferred to your emergency contact. You've left a glorified note some other way as your trip plan, texted a friend. Will anyone know you're missing? The answer is yes, because you've left that trip plan at home with friends and family. Will anyone know where you are? Absolutely, because you left it all on the trip plan. There'll be no questioning on what mountain, what trail, what route, because you've taken that time to plan that and lay it out so that when there's a call, like there is happening right now, they have that finer detail of that piece, because it's a huge investigative puzzle for them to put together. Search and rescue. When should you call? ASAP, right away. We just talked about that too. Are you prepared to treat a medical emergency? You've taken some training, wilderness first aid, and do you have those essentials to keep warm and dry? Absolutely, because you packed them all in your pack. A little bit about communications and the lack of cell phone reception and what we think these phones will do for us. The nice mauve color in Alberta is where there is decent, clear communication lines. Come back to British Columbia, those bandwidths of that mauve color are a lot less. Understanding that your communication should not be relied on for your phone. You need to have another means. If it's a Zoleo spot in reach, and understanding what those features on that device do for you, what they can do for you. In our handouts here, we've got two pieces of information there. You can get them and download them before we're done tonight. One is about making the right call. It talks about those devices, what you can use, and what the features are. So that's in there too, plus a resource list with a whole bunch of other information that we can't fit in tonight's session. Your observations, you're checking for hazards, you're looking around to see if it's safe to make a shelter right here, and is there any clearing that maybe search and rescue will see you better from if it's an opening. Don't go looking and searching for that, but if it's close to where you are and you hear the helicopter, that's where you can make a big, large SOS, wave your emergency shelter, a bright pack, make yourself big. Key points. Now you get to plan with those essentials that you've got with you. Time to build your shelter. Hopefully you've taken some training, maybe some bushcraft. That's always fun. Build that and keep warm and dry because you might be waiting for a while. The average search and rescue call, some are only a few hours, some are days, like it's happening currently. The average time is about 8 hours, and they usually get flown in right around sunset. You might have to wait that whole evening before you are brought out safe and sound. So think about how you will sustain yourself in that situation. Keeping warm and dry is key. The proper clothing, definitely not cotton. You're having synthetic materials, you're layering that with a synthetic base, a thermal insulator in the middle, and a protective on the outside. And understanding how to make that fire safely, if you're capable of doing that with the kit that you have in your pack, and knowing how to do that. That comes back to that training piece and having those essentials with you. And then this makeshift lean-to here is awesome, with a couple emergency shelters, fire to reflect in, a wonderful lean-to with some natural boughs and flora and fauna up against that wonderful tree, helping you create a space and a home until you're found. And it provides you some mental strength as well to be in this setting and be able to do that. It puts you into action as well, which keeps us busy. Let's think about the colors that you wear for a second. I'm not sure what you're wearing tonight. You can see I'm in gray. I often lean to earth tones and darker colors. But when you're outdoors, think of what the search and rescue volunteers need to see. They need bright, they need contrast, they need a clue. They need to see you and hear you, and that would be with your safety whistle. But visually, this is a viewpoint from the bottom of a helicopter, from the skid looking down. And it's interesting how much flora and fauna all blend in. We need to stand out, and how we do that is up to you. Just a few little extra pieces. We talk about our main message, but there is more. And even right now, of course, we're grateful for Sandy's insight and helping us with so much more, but acknowledging the land in the ways that Sandy shared with us. My favorite piece, one of the many, is taking notes while I'm out there so that I can share that with family and friends later, and maybe create some adventurous stories that I had. But that acknowledgement is key. Leaving no trace while we're out there. A lot of Sandy's sharing tonight touched on that as well in her own unique way. We need to be diligent right now with our fire safety. We add this piece in here in the bottom left. We're not to be camping on helicopter pads. They look almost identical to a tent pad, but the helicopter pads will be labeled as such, and we're not to camp on them, picnic, sleep, or do yoga. They're meant for emergency response only. We did a post lately, and there's some great information in there on Instagram if you want to go peek. Wildlife aware, we have to be cautious and conscious of our friends in the forest. And then this has come across lately, search and rescue have noticed that some hikers, let's say, as one example, are using the contact that they found from a search and rescue volunteer's website as their emergency contact email for their hike. That's not the case. That emergency contact that you're picking is someone that you trust and understands your abilities, and they're your contact. It's not me, it's not AdventureSmart, and it's definitely not search and rescue. As I wrap up, and before we go to questions, just remember those 3 T's. They're key, they're easy, they're simple, and they are hopefully one day, if not sooner than later, habitual, and it becomes a nice, great habit. Now, if you don't already have our app downloaded, you can go to camera setting, put it over the QR code, and you'll be set to go. It's free, it's easy. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. There's all our socials if you haven't followed us already. So as I open it up Sandy and I again, I just want to say we do a presentation every week on Thursday. Our next one is our PaddleSmart program coming up on Thursday, and then every week throughout the summer, and then we get queued up for some more late fall and all winter. We're excited to set up some more special events as well for winter, to kick off winter, so we're excited about that. Thank you for listening to our Survive Outside program, and I welcome Sandy back on her camera if she will, and Natasha could join us verbally and let us know if we've got any questions. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, we don't have any questions as of yet, but sometimes people can be a little bit shy, and then they all kind of come in at the same time. So you can just put them in your questions field on your dashboard if you do have any questions for Sandra or Sandy. Make sure I pronounce those properly. Yeah, so yeah, nothing yet, but they should come in soon.
Nice. I was thinking when you were talking, Sandy, about all of your pieces, it was really interesting. And I would think to stop at the local store or a business, but I wouldn't think of it in the way that you shared us to do it. So I'm going to be much more conscious when I come through. Like I said, I come to Pemby a bunch to ride, and I'm going to be definitely more conscious of that and stop in and do that. And I know, and I've heard others talk about many recreationalists passing through your community, like to get to another point of recreation versus taking their time to get through there and being respectful, even just with the speed limit. I know in that area I've seen it, and it's a concern. So there's a few points you made that will be sticking with me as I pass through next time.
Yeah, and just to touch on that as well, there's a bike trail up near Lil'wat. It goes in the I think it's called Della Creek, and the road to get to the trail actually goes through an Indigenous community, and it's being threatened to be closed because people aren't being respectful of that community while they're going through. So that's a huge thing, is just, you know, going the speed limit, having that little wave interaction with the local community, and just, you know, setting a good example for not just yourself, but the entire sport itself. It's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah, you also made some other points there at the trailhead and being respectful there. And, you know, and we spend a lot of time at trailheads. Natasha and I have done this for a long time, and we're talking to people about being safe out there. And we see all sorts of things as well at those trailheads that are very interesting in relation to outdoor safety or lack thereof. That's why we're there. That's why we're there, to share that. But it's your points were valid too, and just setting that good example and making that image for yourself in that space. It was that was poignant as well.
Awesome. So we do have an audience question from Megan, and she's asking, are there any Indigenous owned outdoor guides or businesses that you would recommend that we as outdoor adventurers can support or take lessons from?
I do know that there is one in Stanley Park, actually. It's like kind of like a medicine walk. I'm not sure the name, but I know she does medicine walks in Stanley Park. And then also Talisay Tours. They do a lot of like canoe journeys, and yeah, they're like just really amazing. I think they're based in Vancouver as well. But for here in our area, I don't think we really have anything. Like hopefully one day maybe we'll have like hiking guides. That's Indigenous Women Outdoors. One of our goals is to see more Indigenous representation within the outdoor industry and have those guides. So we are working on training a lot of our women to become like hiking guides. I got my bike certification this year. Like, it's just working on things like that. But for now, there's not really anything that I know of in our local area, but there's a few in Vancouver that offer tours.
Awesome. Sandra, do you know of any off the top of your head as well? I don't either. That's actually something I'd like to look more into, of just to how to connect with tours like that, and more ways to connect with the land, like Sandy was saying. We have another question from Jenna May, and Jenna May is asking, does Indigenous Women Outdoors have a monthly donation subscription service that someone could sign up to?
No, I don't believe we do. We do have a donation option on our website, and I think it's through e-transfer. So you're more than welcome to pop onto our website and donate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. And then Jacqueline is asking, is this recorded so we can rewatch? Yes, it is recorded, and you all will be emailed a copy of this so you can rewatch and re-reference any information that was needed. So yeah, definitely it will be sent out to everyone. And that's all the questions I have for the moment in my question field, but like I said, they will pop up as they did. So maybe Sandra, if you have another question.
I just on a side note, tech question to you, Natasha. I just stopped sharing my screen to get rid of my PowerPoint, but I just want to make sure the audience can still see Sandy and I.
Yes,
Do you know
they
if
can.
that's the case?
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome, wonderful. Well, like I was saying, we rotate through our weekly programs every Thursday. The next one's Paddle Smart. And back to your point, Natasha, if I knew anything about that, I thought Grouse Mountain did some tours, and I thought they had some Indigenous-based tours. I can't remember what they were, but I remember that they had something up there, and I'm not sure. We'd have to look into that. But I think that would be something for you and I, Natasha, to see what we could find, and maybe Sandy, if you have any more information as you learn along the way, to let us know. I think the more we can share, we do have a few links in our Instagram linked tree that we have linked to different resources. Working in a Good Way through Outdoor Rec Council of BC is one of them, which is awesome. We work closely with Outdoor Rec Council there too on many ways, and they've provided some really decent resources. So if anyone's looking for any additional pieces, Outdoor Rec Council of BC is also another awesome advocate in our industry that supports Sandy. They support us, they trails, parks. It's a really great council to look into. So that's also another one. Definitely, you know, as we go ahead, Sandy.
I just thought of another one is Moccasin Trails. They do tours as well. I think they do hiking tours. They do cultural tours. They do like team building for like your companies or whatnot. But yeah, they're a really good one. I remember I had gone to a presentation that the owner put on for us in a Indigenous Tourism Canada conference that I was part of. But yeah, they're based out of Kelowna.
Nice, that's super helpful. And I know that as we consider everything Sandy said tonight, and hopefully what I've said as well, I always like to, at this point of our events, is have everyone remember to consider also our search and rescue volunteers, who are from all walks of life and vast diversity as well. They're all volunteers, and they're all volunteers who are unpaid professionals who respond to a lot of search and rescue calls, and they leave their family and friends and Christmas dinners and gatherings and ceremonies that are important to them as a family, and then they'll go off and help others for hours on end and days, like we're seeing now in Squamish. And so, you know, if we can consider them as much as possible, and you can consider them, and by doing that, by being prepared is considering them, by leaving a trip plan is considering them, by understanding where you're going to recreate is being considerate of them as well. And you know, I said at the very beginning of our presentation, we've seen a continuous trajectory upwards of our search and rescue call volume in British Columbia. There's so much involved in that equation, but what we are seeing is that search and rescue calls are changing. I hear that back from industry and from insights in the board that I work with, and the severity of calls are less to a degree, and you know, they're not as much searching as compared to rescuing. Again, there's so many layers to the pieces of what we do, and there's so much data to analyze, but there is a shift. There's also a shift in more of an interest in outdoor rec. There's a shift in marketing outdoor recreation and Indigenous tourism of outdoor recreation. It's just a wonderful batch of mixture here, and it's great and exciting, but it's also continuing to rise. We did some studies internally of some stats, and we can see that, you know, in the next 8 or 9, 10 years, the growth will be incredible for the search and rescue call volume that we will have. It's already a lot, it will continue to grow if it follows our needs analysis. With more emphasis on us doing this and working with special events guests like Sandy and others that can come and join us and help us enlighten us on all facets of outdoor rec.
Awesome. Yeah, we don't have any more questions, but we do have a nice comment from Luann. And Luann says, thank you so much for a great presentation. Lots to think about. And another one from Amy saying, excellent info. Thank you so much for your time. So I think, yeah, no more questions have come in on my end. So I think once you guys can say some closing remarks, I will end the webinar.
Sounds good. Sandy, you're welcome to conclude if you like. You've got a passerby in the back there. We've got a special guest behind our special guest.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully I can see you in person one day if I'm up in your area and your territory, and maybe a bike ride might be in order. That's an easy way to have a little chat along the trail. That's always fun. That would be wonderful. I'll keep in touch for sure. And on behalf of the BC AdventureSmart program and Natasha and I and our team here at BC AdventureSmart, thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. If you want to join us again, we're here every Thursday. But you can find us always faithfully on social media, and the AdventureSmart website has lots of information as well. But in closing, we're grateful for Sandy's time tonight and her time away from her family to do this, and everyone who joined us this evening. Keep in touch, and you will get a recording of this, everyone, us included, and you can watch it and share it wherever you like and increase awareness that way as well. That's an easy way to share Sandy's and my message as well. All the best, everybody. Have a safe summer. Good night.